Now it's time for our weekly energy update with Dan McTeague, president of Canadians for Affordable Energy.
Hello, Teresa. It's great to have this long weekend coming up. I'm sure we're looking forward to it from coast to coast. And of course, the weather is certainly there, enjoyable in many parts of the country. And weather's being weather, climate's being climate. It's warm in the summer, it's cold in the winter. Let's count our blessings that we're at that part of the year where we tend to enjoy these things and spend a few days away. Hopefully, many will be taking to the roads, heading to favorite destinations to make this part of a small or very large holiday. Many will notice that the price has gone up a little bit. Doesn't matter where you are, the price of gasoline and diesel have risen about 5-6 cents a liter in the past week, sometimes a little higher. I'll explain why it's a little higher in many cases. But if you're looking at right across the country, British Columbia still in the 140, 150 range. That's for the interior. 170 for the Vancouver, 164, 165 for Victoria. And that's because there's a tax difference in British Columbia. As you know, they don't just pay municipal taxes on fuel, transit taxes. They also still pay a big carbon tax. It's called the Clean Fuel Standard. It's the second carbon tax. It's about 14, 15 cents a liter plus GST. So the rest of the country sees that, but it's only about 4 cents a liter. It's buried in the wholesale price of gasoline. So yes, the Clean Fuel Standard, which is around 10 years in British Columbia, is a lot closer to 17, 18 cents a liter. The rest of the country still at 4 cents, but we're heading there by 2030. Of course, I digress. I went off on a little bit of sideline there. In Alberta, prices did in fact increase, but they decreased a little bit as well. That's because a lot of gas stations were selling fuel below cost all of last week. They had to suddenly realize, with prices jumping on the wholesale side, their own costs by 5 or 6 cents a liter, they had to restore those prices, including a bit of a profit margin, so they could survive. Saskatchewan, I've said it before, the Guess Who had a very famous song in the 1970s, Running Back to Saskatoon. And, I think Burton Cummings, a singer, talked about the fact that nothing ever happens in Saskatchewan. And that clearly is the case for gasoline, because it pretty much stays flatlined all the way between 131 and 135 between Regina and Saskatoon and places outside. Manitoba, same thing, 133, 135 for Winnipeg and places around. Pretty much the same thing. As for Ontario, well, we've seen prices move up from 133 last week to 141 on Friday, likely to come down to 139 on Saturday, maybe 137. And that could mean maybe 135 by midpoint next. So it could be a bit of a savings there if you can hold on. Quebec still staying in the 160, 64 range. Montreal and Quebec City. Again, they have carbon taxes and a higher provincial tax, provincial sales tax. So that makes prices a lot more precious and expensive. And so they do pay a premium of almost 30 cents a liter versus Ontario. If you're in the Maritimes, you've seen prices go up a bit, maybe a penny and a half, 2 cents a liter for gasoline, a little bit more for diesel. And that's, of course, a reflection of what's happened over the average of the past 7 days. Most Atlantic provinces have their own formula. You have little bureaucracies trying to create and second guess what the market is doing. And that, of course, means that being precise means you have to get into the minds of and into the so-called formulas these folks use in order to justify their existence and continue to, when we see prices falling everywhere, they tend to stay where they are in Atlantic Canada. So a little bit like a security blanket that Atlantic Canadians tend to think they're getting, but frankly, they're getting ripped off. And it's unfortunate that they still think governments can look out for them, but that's perhaps the way we think over there, and that the government knows best. It doesn't, and it does rip you off because of the regulated systems, which doesn't exist anywhere in North America for good reason. So let's talk a little bit about those variations in prices that we see. Gasoline or gas stations often have a wholesale price number that they're given. So, a day where it says $1.35 a liter, automatically there's 8 or 9 cents of that is retail margin. That's the control that the gas station has over the price, the last 8 cents a liter. And so often what happens is we see gas stations offer fuel 8 cents cheaper in the afternoon or in the evenings than they did in the morning. And that's because they get rid of that retail margin. Now, they don't get rid of it for premium. They don't get rid of it for diesel. And they certainly don't get rid of any margin when it comes to the money they can make by having people come into their stores. So I give an example of water. Go to any grocery store, $2.99, $1.99, $3.99 for 24, 28 bottles of water. You break those down and sell them in a C store at a gas station. They're often $1.99 per unit. So you can see where sometimes selling coffee, beef jerky, water, whatever the case may be, has significant margins that allows them to defray or at least allow gas stations to offer gasoline at sometimes even below cost. But there comes a point where they can't hold on to that, especially when the wholesale price on the markets tends to rise. If they have prices below and we have a long weekend where suddenly you get double the amount of people coming to your gas stations to buy fuel, and you're losing 3 or 4 cents a liter, you will see that multiply. And of course, for a lot of gas stations, that could mean going out of business. So a lot of them have to throw in the towel, raise those retail margins. People aren't very happy about it, but what they don't realize is that they're getting a deal where they're buying gasoline for essentially the same price the gas station is buying it for, and they're getting the benefit of rewards and loyalty programs. I don't have it here with me, but if I had one, I'd say if I go in and use an Optimum card or any one of these so-called loyalty programs like this one here, that's 6 or 7 cents, maybe or a percent on every liter of gasoline. That isn't paid for by Loblaws or the card issuer. It's not paid by the banks. It's actually paid by the bottom line for the gas station. They have to pay for it. So when you sell gasoline 2 or 3 cents a liter below cost, you might look cool and try to be trendy and try to stay competitive with the other big guys. But at the end of the day, you may be doing significant harm to yourself. There's no money in selling gasoline in Canada. By the way, I do see a lot of people say, yeah, I go to Costco because it's always cheaper. Well, yeah, but you pay $120, $150 membership fee every year. I know, I have one. And you can't use any other one's card. You can only use their card. So, I guess I say this to those who think Costco and the big box stores are cool. If they're going to offer gasoline below cost, why the hell are they doing it with grocery prices and other products inside their stores? If it's that cool and that trendy and such a great model, let them put their money where their mouth is and offer all items in their store below cost, not just a few of them where they can make up the difference or make it by getting a rewards program from you. A little bit more about where we're heading this week, by the way, on gasoline. I think we're going to see it go down a little bit. Tariffs have come into Canada. That's going to start to have an effect and an impact on our economy. Not so sure it's going to have much of an impact on the United States for now, but it looks like this could continue to depress world prices for both oil and gasoline and diesel. And for that reason, I think we're going to start to see the beginnings of what could be an early drop in energy prices, not an increase. And for that reason, let's just fasten our seatbelts, wait till after Monday or Tuesday of the long weekend to fill up, and we'll save a few bucks. That's it for this week, Teresa. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great long weekend.